Good morning, Dean Marmelo. Good morning, classmates. I am Jervis Masangkay and I'm going to present the research summary. What is a research summary? A research summary provides a brief overview of a given study, typically an article from a peer-reviewed academic journal. This academic piece of writing describes research to the target audience. It provides the reader with a brief overview of the entire study. The research summary includes the title, abstract, introduction, methodology, results section, and sometimes it includes discussions and references. A research summary concludes the written paper and emphasizes specific points that are highlighted in it. Research summaries also demand the writer to have a clear knowledge of the topic to enable easy comprehension of the contents of the paper. So why research summary is important? A good research summary is important because it provides summarized contents of a research study and is different from a research abstract. Research summaries are used mainly when research has been developed for an organizational partner, funding entity, or any other external group that took part in the study. When you are preparing to write your research summary, remember that 1. It is not an abstract. 2. It is not an introduction. 3. It's not a preface. And lastly, it is not a random collection of highlights. Next, we have the steps in writing the research summary. So first, read the entire document. It is critically important to read the document thoroughly before you begin the writing process. Find a research summary example and go through it too. Reading allows you to take important notes and highlight significant statements of facts, key findings, and recommended courses of action. This prepares and enables you to organize and summarize your paper. Remember that this is not an abstract of 300 words or less. It is a mini paper of your paper and focuses on the recommendations. Next, isolate all major points within the original document. You have to choose the most important parts of the document and audience who are going to read them. These points must be incorporated into your summary to provide a thorough and complete explanation of the message that the original document is trying to convey. Next is to separate the major sections, which includes the opening statement, background information, purpose of the research, data collection techniques and analysis, overview of findings, and description and justification of every recommendation. You have to closely examine each section of the original document and identify the major differences in each of. After you have a firm understanding of every section contributions about other sections. Write a few sentences for each section describing the major ideas. Next is to combine the information. The information gathered is now used to combine them into an executive research summary that does not exceed 10% of the original document. You have to be concise since the objective is to provide a brief explanation of the entire record. You should focus on the recommendations that have come out of your research. The wording of this section differs depending on the target audience and what they care about. You can include bullet points selectively to enhance brevity and emphasis. And lastly is to Reread your summary. Once you are done with your research summary, give time before you can read it. Check to ensure that it will make sense as a standalone document from the original paper. Taking some time off from the paper will enable you to see the summary from an unbiased perspective. So, what are the common mistakes to avoid in a research summary paper? First, we have is to consider the length of the research summary. The general rule is that an executive summary is not supposed to be more than 10% of the number of pages of the original document. The upper page limit is 10. This keeps the document short enough for the audience to read, but long enough to allow for a complete standalone synopsis. Next is to consider your audience. If it is necessary, we must consider the types of audiences who are likely to benefit from your study and make adjustments accordingly. One of the mistakes you can also make in the research paper is to write in a manner that is not clear. Your audience is likely seeing your research for the first time. The best way to avoid this problem is to write it after the study is completed. Follow the same strategies of proofreading that you would do for any paper. Another common mistake is the using of strong and positive language. If your language is imprecise and passive, it weakens your research summary. Remember that this is a standalone document that is intended to convince the audience to decide on the implementation of the recommendations you make in your paper. If they are convinced, the full document is assumed to have full details that are needed to implement these recommendations. Even though you are not supposed to pad your summary with unbiased statements and pleas, you have to pay attention to ensuring that a sense of urgency is created in the implications, recommendations, and conclusions that are presented in the research summary. Target the audience who can implement the recommendations. The audience should not struggle to understand your research summary. We must also use paraphrasing instead of quotes in the research summary, and we must use scientifically accurate language. Here are some of the tips for completing a research summary. First, know what the paper is talking about. Ensure you have the complete picture of the major points described in the main part of the paper. Read your work severally or at least skim through it to remind yourself of the essential parts and the structure. Every paragraph should have adequate attentions since you need to have a clear picture in your mind. Know that the thesis statement, research question, and hypothesis for your summary. It is important to know the methodology. Go through the main figures, tables, and statistics to enhance the credibility of your work. Find interpretations of these statistics and tables for the whole experiments. Next is do an in-depth reading. The best way to check for mistakes in your paper is read through it. Ensure that your paper contributes to the scientific community and provide solutions to the problems. Next is to sketch your conclusion by writing down the major points you are going to include in your research summary. It helps you to remain within the point without digressing. Edit your research summary for style, completeness, grammatical mistakes, spelling, punctuation, and structural errors. you also have to check the correlation of the research summary and the ethical considerations. Give another person a chance to go through your work because at times, you might inadvertently overlook some mistakes. And lastly, read other examples of research summaries to get the gist of what you can do in this assignment. It will make your writing easily and you will develop an excellent paper. That's all for my report and thank you.